So good evening. It's almost 7:15, and we're opening the meeting of the Littleton Zoning Board of Appeals. We're in room 103 at 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. And on our agenda at 7:15 is a discussion of administrative matters, the first being minutes. And without further ado, I'd like to get through as many sets of minutes as we can. So, Shelley, are we really going back to January 5th?
We really are.
Okay.
Did you give us new copies?
January 5th.
Sent them out electronically twice, so.
5th or the 19th?
The 5th and the 19th.
I've got the 19th in front, I got the 5th in front of me. Okay, the 5th was a set of minutes. I don't think I attended.
Kimball.
Is that
Oh,
Kimball?
that's the Kimball Fire hearing.
Oh,
So,
that's-
did you and Jeff have a chance to review that? Because I don't think it was.
Cheryl.
Yeah, because I wasn't there either.
Oh, right.
I mean,
No.
Shelley said you sent that back with edits, no?
I did, Shelley and
Did
I
them in
did
the
sit
office
down
the
and
other day.
have edits. Did anyone else have any edits? Rod, did you?
No.
Okay, so as we edited them, let's take a quick peek. Is this up to date?
That was in the email that I printed out.
No, that's
That's
not
right.
from, I'm on vacation this week, so I haven't done anything,
So
so.
this is not the minutes?
Why don't you
This is-
approve them
this
as
is-
you
This
edited
is
them?
not the one that we changed Tuesday afternoon.
Why don't you, let's,
What are you doing here if you're on vacation?
That's a good question.
I will entertain a motion from someone who was here, Rod, to accept the minutes of January 5th as amended by Cheryl and Shelley this week. She was acting chair, and so she had a few grammatical edits to the minutes, and
So moved.
they were made.
Thank you.
Second, please.
I second that.
And then all in favor, and I
It's just you
think
and I.
that only you two can vote on accepting those minutes, because you're the only two
But-
that were here.
That's fine.
Okay.
All
So
in
the
favor,
minutes
aye.
of January 5th are approved and accepted. Minutes of January 19th, that was two matters. 37 Baldwin Hill Road, sorry, three matters. 123, 4, and 6 Oak, and 71 Taylor. I've reviewed the ones I said on, I recused myself from the Oak Road ones.
I reviewed the Oak Road one, and it's fine.
I have no changes. Anybody else have any edits to that set of minutes?
Looks like I wasn't there that evening.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve those as written.
I was not there.
I move we approve the minutes of January 19th, 2017.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Okay, we're on to, moving right along here. We're on to March 16th. We had no February meeting. I also reviewed those.
Sherry, you gave me some edits to those at the last meeting, which I made, but I think I resent those out. They were all just grammatical.
Okay, I think they were very minor. I
Yep.
read those again to determine
Oh,
what happened with the accessory dwelling bylaw. So I'm okay with that. Anybody else have any edits to that one? I don't think there were any hearings, any case hearings. We were talking about the accessory dwelling bylaw, which I'd like to take a minute under administrative matters and go over right now with everyone, but let's approve this set of minutes first. March
16th.
16th, 2017. I'll entertain a motion to accept them as written.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's just do these two quick ones. We have no April, Shelley, and we've got a May
Yeah,
18 and a May 30. I stood down for both of those, but those were both continued hearings because we didn't have a quorum, so we can approve those right away, too.
Did you have your questions answered about?
No. So the April 30th, I just need to know.
all we did was we opened it. We informed him that due to circumstances beyond our control.
Yeah, I just don't know who made the motions, because it wasn't on tape.
My thought might have been Alan did, and I seconded.
Yeah, because I was chairing.
Okay.
We asked him if he wished to continue. He said he preferred to wait for a full board. It was his choice.
So I'll entertain a motion to accept the April minutes as written. Second?
Second. These
Did
are
you stand down?
the May minutes.
No, we're still
Oh,
in
I
April.
did. No, we don't have in April, we had
Okay,
two in May.
okay.
And, yeah, you're right, I can't do
You
that
can't,
because
so
it
can you
wasn't-
second the
I can
May?
second.
And then all those in favor of the May minutes?
These are the ones she hasn't written yet, or the ones she
No,
has?
she has written, and there's
She
nobody
just
there, it
had
was
the-
just a
She just had
continued
this info
hearing.
here, senior.
Okay, that's fine.
And then the next one, that was just for May 18th, and then the next one is May 30th. So, again, that was continued
I
because there
make a
wasn't
note,
quorum.
so moved.
Second.
Second on that one, and those all in favor.
Aye.
So we're up to May 30, we're up to June.
Yeah, the April ones, I wasn't at that meeting, so I have to do
Okay,
those,
fine.
and then July's
Hi, Alan.
for the next one.
Okay, so I just wanted to give an update on the housing bylaw. A couple of meetings ago, the planning board told everyone that they were going to be reconsidering the density bylaw, that senior residential dwelling bylaw that has been floating around. And this board individually and collectively told me that they were all interested and wanted to go. So I've had Shelley post joint meetings. Many of you attended the first one, and there was a lot of information. We kind of ran upstairs and downstairs to hear that hearing. And then there was a subsequent meeting about, I don't know, 3 weeks later, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And there was an awful lot of detail and meat at that meeting, and no one else showed up. So I wanted to remind you all that this bylaw is coming down the pike very fast. If we want to have any input to it, we have to be in attendance at the meetings. There will be one more planning board hearing or meeting about this, and then they will conduct a public hearing before putting it on the town meeting warrant. So we have 2 more planning board meetings.
United.
Number 7.
September 7th is the next one. I would ask you to post that for us as a joint meeting again, Shelley. I wanted to just give you,
Is it devoted to the housing, or are there other,
Planning board
It's
ZBA
their
meeting.
regular meeting.
it's their regular meeting.
so we don't know when they...
I'll send you the time. I think it's 8 o'clock.
I think it's early, I think they do that early just because Judy, the
Planning board ZBA
person that
meeting.
they have as a consultant, goes early. What's really interesting about this bylaw to me is 2 things. One is that it provides for density all over town in almost any district. It does not have anything that is going to restrict by age. It does not have anything that is going to mandate affordability. And they're just hoping that by designing it so that it encourages senior occupancy, they will build it that way. Oh, here it is, right here.
When is
The other part of this is that senior housing bylaw is going on the town meeting warrant with another bylaw which is designed for inclusionary zoning. So while they don't have any affordability component in the senior residential housing bylaw per se, there is supposedly going to be another bylaw, it hasn't been drafted yet, we haven't seen it yet, that is going to provide that in any development with more than 6 units being created, the developer will have to offer up some affordable component, whether it's a unit, whether it's dollars to create a unit, whether it's dollars to a housing trust for the town to have money to create units. So ideally, if they're coupled together and they both pass, you would get some inclusionary zoning going forward. You would get some affordable housing going forward, you would get some money for the town going forward. The question is whether they'll really work that way in practicality. So just some of the highlights that I saw at that meeting was, they are not going to have a minimum lot area at all, meaning you can build 2 families, triplexes, low-rise condos, or assisted living facilities, independent living facilities, or, 4-story with garage under with elevator buildings in any neighborhood with no attention to how many acres it'll be. That's on the bylaw right now. There's not going to be an age restriction. It's just going to encourage first floor master bedroom, and no more than 1 step to the front door and to the access. There's not going to be any affordability component, and there will be a restriction on the size of units. So those are sort of the key points in it right now. The board pretty much decided to go with that proposal and not listen to any other suggestions. So I really think it's important, if you care about it, to be there. Okay, that was that one.
And that's September 19th,
7th will be the first hearing.
7th?
The next hearing, not the first hearing, it'll be their third hearing, September 7th. And then October, whatever their meeting date is, probably first Thursday in October. Tuesday, what are they meeting?
Yeah, because town meeting's the end of October this year.
So that'll be, I think
Why would
it's,
they,
I think their October, is the 7th a Tuesday?
No, it's a Thursday.
Thursday. So their October meeting will also be the first Thursday in October, and that will be the public hearing on this bylaw, and that's where the citizen input will come in. Okay. I have 7:20. I'm going to open our first hearing. 7:20, I'm opening the case number 887 at 3 Lincoln Drive, request for a variance pursuant to 173-10-1, nonconforming uses and structures, and 173-31, intensity of use schedule for a proposed front porch at 3 Lincoln Drive. Presenting is Roger Kennard. Roger, will you step forward, and I'll just tell everybody who's here that the procedure is that you will present your position. The board will then ask any questions they have to ask, then we open it up to abutters for comment. You get to rebut, everybody gets a turn, and we do it pretty informally here, you know that.
Yeah, okay.
You can sit.
I can say?
You
Okay.
can sit if you want.
Well, we applied for a building permit probably about 3 weeks ago, denied for the fact that we needed front porch to egress the front door. And with the new adopted 7th edition subdivision rules and regs, front porches, bulkheads, chimneys, etc. are considered part of the structure. So with this front porch that we need for egress, it encroaches on the front lot line. The setback requirement is 30 feet, and the applicant received a variance for that, for 20 foot 4 inches, I believe. And we're going to be into that with the front stairs and the new porch, or the landing. Now, we did the same house in 2006. I have a picture of it, and that didn't come into account at that time. But because of the new 7th edition state building code, it now comes into play.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The obvious question is, can you turn the staircase?
It could be turned.
If you turn it 90 degrees, I mean, 10 feet is awfully close to the road, and I'm very familiar with this lot. We discussed this quite a bit
Yeah.
when we granted the original variance. And I'm delighted to see you're only going up a story and a half, so you're not
Yeah.
going to be 32 feet tall.
Right. Story.
I'm absolutely thrilled to see that, because I was horrified at that. So the question is, could you please, I noticed the driveway goes to the left. If you're,
Yeah, the driveway's to the left, but that's with the old plan. Driveway's actually on the right-hand side.
driveway's now on the right-hand side? Okay, can you just turn the stairs? I mean, I'm willing to grant some for stairs. I would like to minimize it. I'd like to see more than 10 feet off the road with the end of this end staircase if possible. So could you just turn it 90 degrees, and that way you're emptying into your driveway?
Well, it'll be 10 foot 4, and actually the footprint there is a 30 by 40 footprint. And the actual house is only going to be 28, so we'll grab another 2 feet there. So it'll actually be 12 foot 4 off the front lot line. But there's going to be another 8 or 9 feet within the right-of-way to Hot Top for a walkway.
Okay.
So it'll appear like there's, a good 25 feet.
I didn't understand what you just said.
So what's going on here?
I think there's only, let's see. It's going to be utilities and everything going up that side of the house, gas, water.
Okay, no, I just wonder, is this a raised wall of some sort?
That's just grade. That's a plan that's another plan.
So you're not doing the garage under, though?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, what side is that on?
Just as you see it.
But this retaining wall
So-
thing isn't here.
This is that house. It's the same house, we did it in '06.
Okay, well, this plan doesn't show it, so.
Can we pass that?
See how the stairs go?
I see, so that's why you're resistant to turning them,
Right.
because you would run right into your garage. So the stairs, you're saying the foundation's going to be further back, but the stairs you're proposing will still be how far out? Far from the road?
Well, you said, you have nothing from the right of way, right, not the road.
From the right of way.
From the edge of the property that belongs to this?
Yeah,
The
it'd
property
be-
line? How far back from the property?
It'd be 10 foot 4, but with the 30-foot footprint, but we're gonna use 28 feet of it, so it'll be 12 foot 4.
And then how far to the paved surface?
How far to the paved surface? I think the right-of-way there is maybe 40 feet. So
You're not sure.
the hot top's 24. So it'd be about another 8 feet, I guess.
Can somebody tell me what the length is of a car? How do they design parking spaces? What length for cars?
18 feet per typical parking space, yeah.
And how many cars can you get in the driveway?
Currently?
Where the house is going to be set back to. So your house is going to be set back 22 feet now, or that driveway door is 22 feet.
So you can get one in the garage and one in front of it, and that's reasonable. You have to have 2 parking spaces.
Is it a one-car garage door?
Yeah,
It's
it's a
one-car
one-car.
garage door.
So you can get one in the garage and one in front of it, and that gives them his 2 parking spaces, but
Can you also get any cars on the left, Roger?
On the left?
Yeah.
Well, you could do a double driveway on the right.
We could. The grade is going to be brought up so that we only have 8 stairs
On the left.
coming out of the front door. So that grade will come around the
so how many
house.
from the road where they'll step up onto the walkway?
From the road?
Can I ask you, I don't mean to disturb you, can I just ask you to let us finish this hearing? I'd appreciate it very much, because I know there's a lot of you out there, and it's going to get a little bit rumbly. Thank you.
So you're raising in your picture,
Yeah.
the front yard is raised.
In
So I
that
assume
picture.
there's a step or 2 up as they come off the road?
No, that should be flat, coming off the road.
So
And then
you've got,
That
you've
will
got
come up to a little retaining wall that's at the lot line.
a small retaining, and there's steps at the retaining wall.
Right.
That's why I was asking. How high is that retaining wall?
I'd like to keep it around 2 feet.
So there's a 2-foot retaining wall right on the property line.
Right.
I have a
And then that'll
question.
go up, flatten out, and go to 8
Do you have
stairs.
retaining walls right on property lines?
Yeah, if it's not 4 feet. Jillian?
If you used a precast, would it be the same issue? Is it because this is wood and it's affixed to the house is why?
Yeah, if we use precast, it's going to even be more, because I believe the precast pads or platforms are 48, and this will be 40.
And granite would be the same issue as far as like building out with a granite step?
48, yeah.
I see that we have the building inspector here. Do you have a comment on this proposal?
Necessarily, to the applicant's regarding the setback issue. His comments regarding
Chris, could you shut the door?
exemptions.
I don't want to keep them out. It's a public hearing, as much as I hate to do that. What?
You can't shut the door.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
His comments regarding exemptions used to exist in the building code. The 6th edition took them out of the building code. Our zoning bylaw still references the building code for exemptions such as egress stairs, fireplaces, copings, architectural features. Those were taken out, so it's no longer in there. Our bylaw references the building code, but they're not in there. There's nothing to read. So Roger's accurate with that. I have no other comment.
Anybody here on this petition that wants to speak to this petition? You brought people with you. Do they want to speak in favor of the
But these
petition?
are the owners of the property. This is
John Morris.
You want to speak in favor of the petition?
Are you going to live in the house?
Yes, so
I
I've
think-
owned the house for 40 years, and I just want to kind of move on. And Roger, came up with this plan, and I think it's a good plan. I think it'll be good for the neighbors, and it's going to make it's going to bring up the property values.
Anybody else on the board, questions, comments?
Do we have a drawing that shows that what he's presently proposing? Because this one still shows 20 feet and a 34 by 30, and you said he's reduced it. So shouldn't we have an updated drawing?
We could have him mark this up. Our drawing that was submitted with the initial proposal was complete, and he's doing everything to maximize
So
or
the
minimize.
10-foot-4 becomes 12-foot-4.
Right.
And the reason we're
Worst
saying
case-
this, if we grant you a variance, we have to reference a specific dimension.
Okay.
So whatever we, is 12-foot-4 what you need?
Yeah, this is the house plan here. You see the foundation size there is 28 feet.
So, yeah, so we could say it was,
We could say 12 feet.
yeah, 12 feet would probably be safe, give you 4 inches, yeah.
When we originally did
Yeah.
the house on Orchard,
Yeah.
this is the footings for the stairs.
Yeah, I was down that neighborhood today, and it's clearly going to be...
It's a tight neighborhood.
It's a tight neighborhood, but it's going to enhance it, and it won't be any tighter because the stairs are coming off the front. I like the 1.5 stories.
Will the stairs look like the ones you showed us? Those are very attractive.
Yes.
So then I'll put it up.
So,
Can I make a motion to close?
you can.
I make a motion to close the hearing?
Second,
I second.
and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion,
A second, you did?
Yeah.
I make a motion,
Wait, any discussion? Okay, go.
or actually, Jeff, did you make the motion, because you're already writing it?
I move that we grant a variance to, who are we granting this to?
The property.
Or do we
To the
demand
3
that-
Lincoln, at 3 Lincoln Drive, to allow for the construction of entry stairs to not, to be set back no greater, no less than 12 feet from the property line, as generally shown in the drawings submitted with the application. And there's no identification on the
Well,
drawings. but-
just add, with the modification, as represented by the applicant, that the house is 28 feet and not 30 feet as shown in the drawing.
Yes.
I second the motion.
Okay, just a question. Is this going to be a new variance or an amendment to the original?
It'd be a new variance, wouldn't it?
Or an amendment.
How does the real estate attorney do
Let's
this?
do it as a modification of the variance granted, previously granted.
So the motion would be to modify the previously granted variance.
Now, shall I second?
Oh, you already did, but okay.
And what are your names?
Donna and Don Morris.
And Don Morris, okay.
That's probably on the application, right?
I think Steve was the agent.
Okay. Roger.
Roger,
Okay, everybody heard the motion and the second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Granted.
Thank you very much.
Shepherd, you writing it?
All right, I'll write it.
You gonna write it? I'll stick on the notes, right? Thanks. Oh, yeah, you're gonna make me write this well. Get your number.
You've got plenty of-
You're welcome.
See you, Roger.
Thank you.
Yeah, send me that next Alan. Okay.
Wallace, Don Wallace.
That's some of Lincoln got that was a long time ago.
It was a long time. 20 years or so.
It's 20.
Do we have a sign-up sheet?
50.
These go. I know, you're my hero, thank you. I appreciate it.
Pass around a sign-in sheet. I have your pad.
Appreciate that she'll be back there. But we're being taped, so she might be watching this.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
My goodness, you're so much like me. Started doing that when I first started ZBA. I gave out after I rounded the paperwork.
Name and address.
Okay, the time is 7:40. We can't start till 7:45 because it's a posted public hearing, so.
No, it's just a discussion.
Oh, it's a discussion, okay. So we can start. It's a discussion on case number 795B, Wildflower Meadows, 15 Great Road. Request for a determination as to whether the placement of additional fencing not shown on the original plan constitutes a substantial or insubstantial change to the 40B comprehensive permit, condition number 9. And then 7:50 PM is a discussion on the same case, 795B at 15 Great Road, update on the project. Now, just to update everyone on where we were last week, we had a lot of people in the room, and the developer presented to us that there were some issues that he would like some clarification on. One of them was whether or not fences were allowed. So let's take that matter first, and let's talk that through.
Point of order.
Yep.
The Wildflower Meadow just pertains to the individual housing, and 15 Great Road is the project as a whole, correct?
Yes.
All right, so we're only discussing we're not discussing the project as a whole right at the moment, we're discussing the individual houses.
Right now, this discussion right now is whether or not the installation of fences on any of those exclusive use area lots constitutes a substantial or an insubstantial change. There is a provision in our decision, condition number 9, that states, there shall be no sheds, outdoor enclosures, or other accessory structures within the for sale component of the project, which are the individual houses, other than those shown on the approved plans. It was the position of the building department that that meant there were no outdoor enclosures permitted under that decision. The developer has stated that 3 at least of the owners of homes have installed fences, and others have asked to have fences installed, and he is before us tonight requesting us to determine whether or not the allowance of fences or the disallowance of fences is a substantial or an insubstantial change. Under the 40B comprehensive permit regulations, we have a 2-stage process. Tonight we have to determine if this discussion of including or excluding fences is a substantial or an insubstantial change to the original decision. If we conclude it's insubstantial, we can go forward tonight and discuss it. It is formally before us by a properly written letter. If we conclude that it is a substantial change, there's a couple of choices. Developer can withdraw the request, or he can keep the request, and we can go through the formal process of notifying for the substantial change and then having a hearing. So right now, the threshold inquiry is first to determine are fences and the installation of fences insubstantial or substantial. I open it to the board for questions.
Madam Chair, in our subcommittee meeting, we discussed this a little bit and believed that it
I think what you're referring to is a subcommittee that met relative to the landscaping.
Landscaping.
And respectfully, you each, as a board member, can input your input to that, to this discussion. But as a subcommittee determining landscaping, you didn't have the proper authority to decide that, okay? But I hear you.
Well,
Go ahead.
Expanding on that, I guess it would be more precise to say that not necessarily supporting the installation of fences, should we decide to, I would feel it's an insubstantial change.
Okay.
That's,
So polling the board, Jeff says insubstantial. Let's just go around. Alan?
Insubstantial.
Cheryl?
insubstantial.
It's over there. John? Oh, I missed you.
Insubstantial.
Right. First, then John.
Insubstantial.
Insubstantial.
I can't honestly say I know what the definition is that you're using to determine if it's substantial or
So I have
insubstantial.
a question about the fence though, because from what I read, it looks like they're allowed to put in up to 4 feet. according
You
to-
know, right now, we're
Okay.
just
Well,
the
deciding.
No, the
Condominium.
condominium. So my point is though, a 4-foot fence is insubstantial. I mean, that keeps little kids from running around into the road and so forth. A 10-foot solid fence is a different issue.
The rules
So
say no
procedurally,
fences.
once we get past this threshold inquiry of whether it's an insubstantial or substantial change, then we can now determine whether, if it's insubstantial and we start talking about it, we as a board can determine if we want to put a ceiling on the height of the fences. And then we'll have that
I'd
discussion.
see a difference depending on how tall it
Yep.
is.
I agree.
Kitty? I would state to you that the regulations for 40B have criteria for substantial and insubstantial, and mostly they talk about substantial as altering the number of units, or altering your lot lines, or adding property to it, or changing the location of affordable units, or the look of affordable versus non-affordable. I would say that if this went upstairs to the courts, they would say it's insubstantial.
Okay.
And
Thank you
also,
for
we
that
did not
clarification.
specifically say fences in that decision. We said
Enclosures.
enclosure, outdoor enclosure. To me, an outdoor enclosed area applies more here than an enclosure.
We could maybe catch a bull. Mr. Bernier, do you have input on this? Because you're the one that has to enforce it.
It is my understanding that the special permit itself restricts enclosures. The definition of enclosure, according to the dictionary, includes fences. So I have a flat line response, no enclosures are allowed. Enclosures are allowed if they come to this board here and receive permission through a variance, and that's the only way it can be done. The condo docs refer to fences that are 4 feet high as being allowed to some degree. And I still maintain that if that was to be the case, they would still have to come before this board to get permission to put the 4-foot fence up. That's my position.
So, in your determination, are we in the insubstantial change category? So we can further
I'm sorry.
discuss this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, board want to have a formal vote. Somebody make a motion. We determine it's an insubstantial change?
I make a motion that we determine this is an insubstantial change to the 40B at 15 Great Road.
Do we want to reference the condo association restrictions? on
No,
the
not
fence?
yet. All those in favor of,
Second.
second, thank you, Rod, second. All those in favor of voting that this is an insubstantial change signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so 5. Okay. Now, Mr. Gallagher, would you like us to discuss whether or not we want to modify want to change the fence requirements? And let's have a discussion on that.
Actually, Mr. Gallagher, could you come forward and tell us your criteria?
Thank you.
Could you detail your current criteria on fences?
Absolutely.
One second. Introduce
Mark
yourself.
Borbowski.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm Mark Borbowski, my office is in Concord. I'm Mr. Gallagher's legal representative.
Hi, Mark. Hello. Nice to see you here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Why don't you present?
Sure. So, you know, at Wildflower, as we discussed at the last meeting, and cursory level at the landscaping subcommittee meeting, Three homeowners have sought permission over the period of time that we have been constructing homes to construct fences. In projects that we manage and construct, it's not unusual to have people that have, requests for fences. We have 119 that's, right adjacent to us. We have an extremely busy road called, Boxwood Drive that feeds 144 apartments and the 56 single-family condominiums on the property. So we often see that, customers come forward for either safety, having dogs, having children, myriad of reasons. And also some customers use fencing as a landscaping feature, not enclosing the entire yard, but using it as a buffer between yards, but not enclosing it. And we have one of the four that have been installed at Wildflower that did that. So they used it as a landscape feature, landscaped, I believe, on one side of it, trees, shrubs, and different things in a bed. So in the projects that we manage and construct, we have a process that we require anybody that wants to put a fence in to come through. First, they have to notify us of what they want to do. We're rather sensitive, obviously, at Wildflower and any other project, that we don't allow customers to put fences on other people's properties. So their first step is they have to select the type of fence that they want to provide, and then bring us forward either pictures or samples or something to ensure that it's in harmony with the property. Secondly, we require them to go to their neighbors, anybody that's adjacent to their exclusive use area in this instance, and they have to seek permission from either left and right or left, right, and back if they have more than two. The neighbors have to come forward to us to say that they have been contacted and that they are either comfortable with having a fence or not comfortable. That third phase, the third step, once the first two are done, is they need to come forward and hire their engineer or hire an engineer who comes out and stakes the exclusive use area. It's kind of important where we're in such tight quarters there that we don't put fences, as I said earlier, on somebody else's property or even on an adjacent property, because some of the fencing is at the end of the property as opposed to being adjacent to another. Once they do that, and they've done those three steps, they've gotten their neighbors to agree, they've given us a fence that is suitable for the property, blends in, low maintenance, or in other instances it could be that it blends in with the property, and they've staked their exclusive use area. We give them permission generally to move forward and install their fences. So that's what we did for three of the four, remembering that one of them is not a full enclosure. It's just a landscape feature that somebody used in their yard. And we leaned towards using the vinyl fence, low maintenance. We know that anything over 6 feet needs to get a building permit, so we try to keep people away from putting a fence up that would be aggressive in that nature. We also have tried to, make recommendations on locations in terms of plowing, snow removal and things, so that when the fence is installed, it doesn't create more of a hazard than protection. So that's essentially the steps. We had 2 or 3 other homeowners in Wildflower that were on the precipice of putting in additional fencing. When Roland alerted me that he felt that it was an enclosure, so we sent out a letter and stopped any further erection of fence on the property. So that's the process that we would recommend that anybody that wants to. There are areas that we talked about, again, on the cursory level with the landscape committee, that with fences against fences, we don't want it to, and I'm sure the customers that are in there don't want it to begin looking like a stall log or a habit trail where you've got to kind of go from one fence to another fence. So we've got to be kind of sensitive about that. But since we met, one of the requests of the board or recommendations was that we began to formulate a transition committee so that they can take this on as one of the items, because this is really an owner-born kind of request as opposed to a developer request. And so we have begun to formulate. We've had 6 individuals, homeowners that have come forward and have joined to form a transition committee, which would eventually, through vote, become a board. We're thinking that maybe 7 or 8 might be the right number, because a lot of people travel. And that would be probably one of the first things to work on, would be to work through what makes sense to have in writing the rules and regulations of the property, including how this would be managed through either an architecture review committee or some process, so that if it is approved and we have some guidelines in place for future owners to come forward if they want to have fencing in the yard for the myriad of reasons that I've explained.
Can I ask you, Roland, is it true that a 6-foot fence requires a permit, but a 4-foot doesn't? I thought it was anything 4 foot high.
No, a 6 foot or above is considered a structure by our zoning bylaw.
Thank you.
So a 5'10" fence is just fine.
It's not, by
It's
our
not
bylaw,
considered a
it's
structure.
not considered a structure. However, I think you're referring to retaining walls.
Yeah,
4 feet of unbalanced fill
Unbalanced
is
fill.
considered a structure also.
thank you. All right, so the next question is, does the board want to comment to what was said? Because my next question is going to be, do those of you who originally worked on this decision have a memory about why we said no fences or no enclosures? Does anyone who was here at the time remember that discussion?
We didn't. That's the way it was presented to us by the developer, as how they wanted it. We didn't restrict fences. We didn't even have a discussion on fences within the units. We certainly had discussions on privacy fences and safety fences on the edge of the projects, not within the projects. It was presented to us as there wouldn't be any, and we saw no reason to argue that there should be.
In fact, some of the earlier plans showed more or less common space with, no, remember there was the one where there was, at the very front, there was just houses around a green, and fences would have been completely against that idea. I have a question about the condo docs, because I want to just clarify. If I'm looking at item L, it says no fence wall or similar structure standing more than 4 feet above the ground immediately. So a 4-foot fence shall be erected, placed, or maintained on a lot appurtenant to a dwelling forward of the front of any structure. And then 6 feet, on any place. I think the board needs to think about that, because especially on boxwood, I don't think it's appropriate to have fences forward of the houses.
We had that conversation when we were together at the landscape.
So there's there's various aspects to this issue. Fences or not, if so, where are they allowed, what height they're allowed, and what material they're allowed.
So I just want to clarify for the board that if the decision says no enclosures, the decision trumps the condo documents.
Sure.
And Rod asked the question earlier, why are we trying to enforce condo documents? The answer is, we're not. We're enforcing our decision or modifying our decision. We can determine if we want the condominium association or the new transition board to be the policeman for fences, and we just wash our hands of it. That's an okay thing to do here, but we haven't done that yet.
How do we get there?
Well, let's have a discussion about who wants to talk about fences. Start with the board, and then I'll open it up to the assembled, please.
I think our developer makes a very good point. In driving around, looking at landscaping, there are lots of children in those individual units, and varying degrees of yard care and yard pride, and Boxwood is a very busy road, and 119 is a very busy road, and even accompanying your young children outside, it would be easy for them to blink in a heartbeat and they're out on a busy road. So if I was living there with young children, I would want a fence.
So it's clear you're in favor of fences. Do you have a polling you?
I happen to like very much the way that our developer is doing the fences, how he is getting the permission from the neighbors. I like the procedure that he's going through. I had serious doubts until I did hear that procedure. I like the idea that he's asking his neighbors. The neighbors have to, not only are they asked, they have to call and give permission.
Correct.
I like the idea that he's not having fences back to back. I like the criteria that he has set for these fences. They answer all my possible objections to the fences. And I do like the idea of not putting the fences forward, especially on, of the house, especially on Boxwood. Maybe you want to limit them not to be forward of the house on any lot. I don't want to micromanage it that much.
No, that was Jeff made that suggestion when we were all together.
All right, let me pull the whole board. Kitty?
The question being whether enclosures are part of the, to allow.
Whether you think we should modify the decision to allow fences, and if we were to allow them, what would you like to see about any restrictions on them?
I think it's reasonable to modify the decision to allow enclosures, given how the development has evolved. And certainly, there's good and valid reasons, especially for the protection of young children, to want to keep them safely enclosed. In terms of what I'd like to see for restrictions, certainly the higher the fence, the more offensive it is. In terms of site structure. I think the description of the process was detailed, precise, seems fair and equitable. I'm not clear about if there's any further, as you said, once, and I apologize for my newness to this process, but once a decision is made, how to allow it, and you said it's up to the condo association to enforce, do we provide them with certain guidelines, or we just say enclosures are fine?
We can choose to provide them with guidelines, or we
Okay.
can say enclosures are fine, which is frankly why I'm polling the board. I want to see what your sensitivity is to the ability of this congregation of folk who have to live together governing themselves, or as Cheryl said, do we micromanage it?
Yeah, so I can see allowing enclosures with certain parameters.
Okay. Jim?
I don't think it should be adjusted. I think it should stay the way it is. I think that property and development is tight enough as it is, and adding an additional height. If you do decide to modify it, I think we need to be extremely careful about putting 6-foot fences in there. I think one of the current ones right now has a padlock on it. And from my view, if there's a fire and you have a very tight backyard that someone either can't get out or the fireman can't get in, and now you're adding more of them, that could be an issue. If you kept it to a 4-foot, I think it would be a lot easier to, one, keep children in, and two, be able to access that backyard easy enough if there was an emergency or an issue like that.
Who had a padlock?
Right when you first pull in on your left, when you go down to that road. There's a tall white one. There's a
The white
padlock
fence.
on that fence.
Oh, finger pointing. Mr. Gallagher?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, because it was traveling.
Because he was away. Okay, I was just curious. I had never seen a padlock. Sorry. I wasn't finger pointing.
We have to be careful about that tonight.
I wasn't
Thank
finger
you.
pointing.
John?
First of all, I think we're talking about fences, so we should stop talking about enclosures and say we're going to allow fences. Because I think enclosure has other things that also are enclosures. So we leave enclosures there as things, and we make an exception that says, but fences are allowed. I like the idea of a backyard fence. You know, a place for kids to play, for your pet to run around free, you know, if you've got a dog or something, or a cat. I guess a cat would get over the fence, but a dog. And it depends on dogs. Some dogs you can get over the fence too. But the idea to have a backyard, I mean, when our kids were very young, we put in a fence and closed it so that the kids could, you know, wouldn't have to sit there and watch them continuously. give them a chance to have a little playtime. And so I think that's acceptable to me. I'm kind of got two different minds about how tall the fence can be. I mean, 4 feet should be enough to keep, you know, most children under control. Either that or they're going to get over whatever you put in. So I think that 4 foot size or so that you don't, otherwise it starts to look like a walled city.
Yeah, my problem with that is they already have 3 fences in. And
Can
how
I
tall are
let the
those?
rest of the board be polled? Okay?
I can't,
No, let the rest
Okay.
of the board be polled, and then you
So
can
that's,
comment back.
my thought is that, you know, 4 to, and I guess I could live with a 6 foot fence in the backyard, but a 4 foot in the back, so as you drive down the streets of the community, the front yards are open and spread, and so it doesn't feel like it's a, you know, a walled city.
Jeff?
I think I'm in favor of allowing fences. I like your distinction of enclosures versus fences. We should keep the enclosure language and just, you know, speak about fences. I don't mind the 6 foot fence. I would not support fences forward of the house. And I'm for letting the owners decide the material. You know, someone mentioned micromanaging. I agree. I don't think we're here to micromanage. We're just here to make everything conform to the decision.
Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I think fences can be a positive from a security point of view and also from an attractiveness point of view. I don't have a problem with the condo association having some say over this and control over it. I guess it's, it's neither here nor there, but I just have a question that maybe I can get offline. But I'm wondering about the original language that was in the agreement. And you mentioned you thought it came from the developer. And I'm wondering if when we actually went through that process, if it really wasn't from the developer, but was from a combination of our council and maybe some templating that happened there, and so that there was some maybe precedent for that language in there. Just curious about that. I can take that offline. It's a conversation for something else. But in terms of fences per se, I don't have a problem with it. I think that's perfectly fine.
Right.
I think it should be the decision of the developer and eventually the condo association. And just to echo what Cheryl said, a lot of this wording was provided by the developer. I don't think we talked about fences. I don't think that language is specifically saying that we don't want to see fences. So if a modification is required, you know, like excluding fences or something like that, so that's fine.
Do you want to respond to anything that was said so far, or let me keep going?
No, I think you should
I
keep
did
going.
have a hand. I'll open it up now to the people who are here. Yes, Dawn.
A question.
Please identify yourself for the record.
Julia Barada. Can you define a back-to-back fence and what is forward of the house?
Mark, do you want to do that?
So forward of the houses would be from the front left and front right corner. The fences that are installed, I think, at this point are all, well, not all of them, but the majority of them are to the rear of the homes. I think that's what they're speaking to.
Okay.
A back-to-back fence, Julie, would be like your lot next to, adjacent to the lot next to you, either the lot to the left or the lot right behind you. So that
Right.
there's not two that are abutting each other.
That's exactly
Yeah.
why I was asking,
Yeah.
the back-to-back.
Right.
So if there's no back-to-back fences, is that what we're saying, no back-to-back fences? And
Well, it means that if you put up a fence in your yard and you put the pretty side facing you, then the not-so-pretty side or the structural side is going to be facing your neighbor. And Mark is saying he doesn't want your neighbor to have the ability to put up the pretty side touching your side. He's got to live with the not-so-pretty side, right?
which may be why the association would micromanage on exactly how, what side is facing out, what your fence looks like. Your association's going to have the ability to say, you know, you can't put the ugly side towards your neighbor, you have to put the structural side towards you. And, because you may end up with, if you don't build a fence and your neighbors build a fence first, your backyard may have 3 different fences.
So the back-to-back relates to the pretty side or the ugly side, not two fences.
No.
No,
back
it
to
means
back.
two fences
All right,
side by
that's
Two
all.
fences, so you wouldn't have,
And pretty side and ugly side is sort of moved with most fencing
Yeah, the
products.
vinyl doesn't have a pretty.
They have equal sides on both
Right,
sides.
I thought it didn't mean that, I thought it meant two fences back-to-back.
No,
not
it does mean
No.
two fences, doesn't it?
That's what
What
you're saying.
what she's saying is, she thought it meant if she has a fence, then her
Then-
neighbor can't.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
the neighbor can have a fence on the other three sides of their lot. They just can't put the fourth side abutting your fence.
So technically, if you don't build a fence but all your neighbors do, you could end up with 3 different fences in your backyard,
But
3 different looks. I mean, that is the
Well, I think that's something that
disadvantage
the
to
board
it.
is probably gonna,
And that's something your condo
Manage it.
association's gonna have to handle,
right.
if we agree to this.
And then a placement of a fence, where do they get placed? Not on the property line, is that correct?
There is no real property line, there's a use line that the developer has determined and is delineated, I believe, in your deed. And so that's the use line. The advantage to that is we would never allow a fence right on, a tall fence right on a property line.
Yeah, right on a property line you can.
You can do it right on the property line? You know, the advantage to that is you can put them right on the property line and everyone knows. And he's saying that his criteria that he would recommend to the association if we allowed this would insist that a survey was done so that it was placed in the proper place.
So if it gets placed on the property line between two homes, then whose fence is it?
The person who bought it. But that's just the point we're making. Once they put a fence on the property line, that's the dividing line between you and your neighbor, you can't put your fence abutting to
Right.
it.
And their fence should be on their side of the property line, it doesn't go down the middle of the fence.
Right, and how do they get to the other side to maintain it?
They can't.
They don't, and in the instances where we've allowed them, they are actually on the inside of the
Okay,
property line,
that's my
not
question.
on the property line.
Gotcha.
So they're not, there's nowhere on the other side for them to maintain.
But these are details that could be
Yeah, the
dealt
association.
with by the approval of the condo association for the erection of fences and getting the neighbor's permission and hopefully cooperation. But I would suggest, based on that, that the association should have one style of fence, that if you want to install it, it's just one.
Maybe, Mark, this is a question for you. I didn't pore over the documents except for the fence section, but in the typical condominium document, those exclusive use areas do have limited rights of access, don't they?
Yes.
Because it's common condominium property, and so theoretically, your neighbor would be able to come onto your property to maintain the fence, onto your exclusive use area. They can't interrupt your exclusive use and enjoyment of it, but they can come for necessity to maintain the common property of the condominium, right?
I believe there's also a statute that allows with notice a person to go outside and onto a neighbor's property within a certain distance from the property line. There's also a statute for survey.
So I think that answers your question. Mr. Hill, I saw your hand up. Has it been answered, or do you want to keep going?
I just want to make the statement that we would oppose a change as it relates to Boxwood Drive, adding fences in front of houses on Boxwood Drive, both for aesthetic and for safety reasons. It could, block the view down the road, and it's
So you
just
don't-
not appropriate.
You don't want a fence forward of the house on Boxwood Drive?
Yeah, other than that.
And the reason that's not an unreasonable statement, because you are now the developer of Boxwood and the owner of the rental units that are served by Boxwood Drive.
Right.
Yeah.
And the trustee of the homeowners association that controls Boxwood.
Which controls Boxwood. Okay. Anyone else want to input? Yes, I've forgotten your name. Please identify yourself.
Gary Sawyer. My issue deals with the height of the fencing. Should you make recommendations to make changes and qualify them? When we did the PNS, all of us as owners did the PNS, and we had various conditions of that PNS. We were allowed, within the scope of that PNS, to have a 4-foot in the front and 6 foot in the back. We did not have benefit of understanding or reading the conditions with the town. So I think we're bound by that particular requirement. And as a result, some have done just that. And I guess it would be my request to allow that to remain versus tearing down some of these fences that, if you should restrict it to 4 foot.
You are asking to be grandfathered for your front fence or height?
I'm asking to adhere to what's in the P&S conditions, which it would be.
Can we close that door so that, we don't mind the public, but we don't want them.
There's mosquitoes right there.
I know, they're eating me alive, right?
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I'm asking that we adhere to the original P&S that we all knew about, which would adhere to no more than 4 feet in the front and no more than 6 feet in the back.
When you say in the front, forward of the line
I
of
don't
the
remember
house?
how it reads specifically, but I would agree with nothing forward of the house itself.
You also said the original P&S. Am I to understand that every purchase and sale agreement that was entered into identically included the right to put fencing up?
Yes.
No,
Included the condo association rules.
he's using the wrong terms.
He's talking about the condo association.
He's talking about
rules.
the condo docs.
Okay.
Yes.
The condo docs were approved
Thank
by,
you. Okay. Okay. Next, anyone else, please? Yes,
I'm Mary
identify.
Lou Barney, I'm at 12 Morning Glory Circle, and I have a fence. It starts from the side of my house and wraps around the back. My property fronts on to 119 and has a steep drop-off on both that side and the side that goes up, what's the name of the road? Mark, what's the name of the road?
Chris
So I have a wooden fence that I got purposely so that it would blend to that gray color and blend in with the house. So it's 6 feet tall, so I would, as Gary said, the very first question I asked Mark in the sales process was, how exclusive is this use area? For example, can I build a fence? And he said yes. The first copy of the condo association rules I got during that process detailed the fencing rules, as did the final documents. I would not have purchased the house in Wildflower Meadows if I couldn't build a fence.
So Mary Lou, I think you're the prime example, because when I drive up Wildflower Meadows and I looked around at the various things going on, I got to your fence and I thought, I don't have any problem with this fence. You're the last house in the line. You're separated a little bit from Great Road, and that's a safety situation that's clear. Your fence blends in with the woodwork and it's very lovely. But if I saw your 6-foot-high fence in every backyard on Buttercup, for instance, or whatever the others, Hibiscus, I'm not sure.
she's talking about this.
You know, I think that's, you know, first of all, they're the backyard. You'd be driving down the street, you'd be seeing the front yards.
So-
And, you know, I think that's a different thing. And, you know, the lots are small. We all knew the lots were small when we bought into it. But there's, in addition to, I have a dog, you know, I have an elderly mother that takes care of my dog and can't walk her. So, you know, there's multiple reasons for the fence. But I think there's also just privacy. And, you know, that's why I think having 6 feet in the back, if you're out on a deck that's a little bit elevated and you only have a 4-foot fence, you know, then you kind of feel like you might as well not have a fence from a privacy point of view.
Can I move, to move this along a little bit, I just want a show of hands. How many people in this room are against there being fencing the exclusive use area in the place where you live? I have one. Can I hear from you? Why? I'm sorry, I need your name first.
My name is Oleg Pepechko. One of the selling points with this property was, we all knew it's going to be crowded, but it was presented as a properly landscaped open area. Right? And what's going on right now, there is no landscaping, and the open area disappears behind the fences, which kind of changes the original idea or original view of this property, at least how it was presented initially.
So in a condominium environment, just the same as in a municipality, you sort of have a democratic vote. And I see in this room that it appears that you are one in several who is against the fence. Is there a fence scheme that you could buy into that wouldn't upset your...
Yeah, it would make sense if there was at least some kind of standard fencing. I don't like very much tall 6-foot solid enclosures. I would be okay with a 4-foot fence, but kind of see-through fence, which will probably protect kids from running on the street, but wouldn't block the open area.
Okay.
So maybe the most important part, it has to be somehow unified, because if everyone starts doing its own thing, it's going to be.
So that's very helpful. Along that line, we know most of the people in this room are in favor of fences now. Is there anybody else who wants to add something constructive that would give us some guidance in how we make this decision? Yes, sir.
My name is Akhilesh, and I'm of the opinion that if you allow the fences of like 4 feet, the rules should be same for all the houses. Like it should not be location dependent. Like if you are on the back side, you are allowed 6 feet. If you are on the front, you are allowed on the 4 feet. It should not be discriminatory in nature.
Thank you. Mr. Bobrowski.
I'm just going to suggest that the micromanagement of this, no padlocks, backyard only materials that should be used, which side faces out, which locations are bad ideas, should be micromanaged by the condo association. So my suggestion would be to take condition number 9, which says there won't be an enclosure, and put simply, provided, however, that the condo association may approve a fence of not more than 6 feet in height to the rear of the building front line. Fences existing as of today are grandfathered from this approval process.
I appreciate you getting to the heart of it right away. I'm not sure I personally bought into the 6-foot height yet.
That was a blank. Fill it in.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to hear from anybody else. I'm sort of leaning toward the 5-foot maximum.
But I
Go
think
ahead.
what he just said is the condo association could decide among themselves to go less than 6 feet, but we can decide to provide a max.
I want my max to be 5 feet.
Okay.
Why do you want your max to be 5 feet? When you're not living there, you're not dealing with the people looking in from their deck over into your yard. You're not dealing with, the dog next door that jumps up and down at a 4-foot fence. I mean, some dogs, big dogs, can be quite tall. When you're not dealing with it, why not leave it up to them? They can't be taller than 6 feet, or they have to come back before us. We really don't want you to come back before us.
Well,
especially for each and every one of them.
I was influenced by one of the comments of one of the owners who said to him, a 6-foot high solid fence makes it feel like you're in Wall City. And I frankly have some issue with, you have a beautiful wooden fence, but some people here have stated that there are varying degrees of upkeep and maintenance on everybody's part, and if you have a 6-foot high wooden fence or a painted fence that is painted and chipped and peeling, and it's not going to look good over time. So
that's a problem.
It's going to be just as ugly at 5 feet.
I know, but
But
I
that's
just feel
what
like
the
5 feet.
association has to do. I think we have to let them be their own democratic body.
I don't have a problem with them being their own democratic body, but
What?
I'm agreeing with you.
Cheryl, but I don't like the 6-foot
Vote
height.
is
You want
not-
input?
Oh, no, I'm not jumping in the middle of this. All I want from the board is a definition of enclosure. And if you are going to make an exception for the fence, identify what that exception is. I like that gentleman on the end over there. I like his commentary regarding this was designed as open. And once you put these up, it's closed. I mean, it's as simple as that. I'm not getting in the middle of this. I want to know how to enforce this.
But the way that this project has evolved seems to, I mean, they may not be aesthetically pleasing, I might not choose to buy
I don't want to
into.
hear that. I just don't want to hear you say that. We voted this project to be aesthetically pleasing. We spent hours and hours and hours with the developer
So,
over
as you tell me-
several years, commenting on landscaping and trees and placement of lights and placement of everything, and no enclosures, because we wanted it not to be.
I believe that was the
That
intent.
was
I
the
read it,
intent.
it's simple for me.
But on the other hand, you've told me over and over what one person's aesthetics
I know.
find pleasing or not.
That's
We're
why
here.
there's a condo association.
But we're here because there's a conflict between the condominium documents
I know.
that you approved and we used and the decision. The condo docs is what we relied on, not understanding that the word enclosure included a fence. So the condo docs specifically state that you can have a 4-foot fence in the front and a 6-foot fence in the back. Everybody here vetted the condo docs, including town council. There was a conflict. I just don't know that it makes logical sense, regardless of whether you settle on a 5-foot or 4-foot, that the people that established and put in fences in good faith, based upon the condo docs, are now, or could be, put at risk to remove them, to put in a smaller height fence. I think if you're gonna,
I wouldn't vote for that in this
Okay.
decision, but 5 foot.
but you understand what I'm saying, is the conflict is the condo docs is, been vetted, and we have a decision that, and I understand, Roland's position, and as soon as he articulated it, we stopped.
When you say 4 feet in the front, you mean at the front as of coming off of the front of the building?
I don't think it's defined well, Cheryl, to be honest with you. As the single trustee of the condo association, I have the ability to make whatever changes we agree to and then republish. So, I understand Oleg's position that he would like to have it open. I do, and in some instances, it may be the right thing to do. And in other instances, where you're adjacent to 119 or you're adjacent to the back of the property, it could be different. But again, I would leave that to the association members to work through, as opposed to,
And Mr. Oleg bought the property with those condo docs?
Oleg read the condo docs, absolutely, he
With that
articulated
allowed
that, right?
fences.
I think everybody's vision of the property, from a buyer's perspective, they all have to sign, receive the condo docs by law, and they have a certain period of time to read them. So, I don't think there's anybody here that's not gonna say they didn't get them, or they didn't read them, or may not have understood them, so.
All right.
We just had some
We can
suggested
either-
wording. If
yeah,
you want
we
to
can
change
either
6
go-
feet to 5 feet, I don't care whether.
I liked his wording. I
Yeah.
would like to change it to 5 feet, but.
And
but
worrying about grandfathering.
That's up to the board. You wanna
Yeah.
read it again so we can have somebody move it? Would you like to read it again so somebody can move it, please?
This is to be added to the end, you just need a semicolon, to the end of condition 9. Provided, however, that the condo association may approve a fence of not more than blank feet in height to the rear of the building front line. Fences existing as of 8/17/17 today shall be grandfathered from this approval process.
And I don't care if it goes 5 or 6 feet. I think that sounds like it's reasonable.
I would have a comment about 5 versus 6, and it's no skin off my nose because I already have a 6-foot one. But standard fencing panels are either 4 or 6.
Yeah.
So to say 5 feet, you're either asking people to build a, by stick fence, or you're making them choose a 4-foot one. So,
Or expensive custom.
yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Well,
Okay.
Mr. Bobrowski has fashioned a motion with the word 6 feet in there. Do you want to make a motion? Somebody want to make that motion? And can I ask you to text that to Shelley so that we have it exactly the way we worded it?
Okay, I move we amend that section as justified.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck reading that.
So we left it as a condo doc.
BLD is building.
No, we left it up to the condo association.
To define how many feet.
Okay, that took us longer than I wanted it to take. I'd like next to head toward a report from the Landscape Committee. Can I do that next, please?
Absolutely.
And you, Landscape Committee.
We met, we talked, we looked at plans that were submitted to us and had been submitted before to the development as it was developed and examples of it. Mr. Gallagher told us how he was interpreting those plans and what plantings he was planning to use, and did 3 sample homes for us. We were asked to go by them and look at them the end of last week, and report back to Shelley about them. I think we all did. Julian, you were a little late. Did you report before then, or?
I reported to Shelley, yeah. I moved it over.
Okay. Jeff and I both got back to him, and I think we were satisfied, and before the weekend, and Shelley passed it on, that we were satisfied with the samples and thought that the plantings were appropriate and in appropriate use of plantings and appropriate types of plantings that would be easy maintenance, less likely to die. Also, we clarified, just so all of you know, we clarified with the water department. You are allowed to water your yard. You are normal Littleton citizens allowed to use the water. So, but you need to be careful. When there is a water restriction in place, when you get the notification that there is a drought and there's a water restriction in place, please follow the rules, just like the rest of us do. Jillian went to the we asked for special to really pay attention to the foundations that were raised and had taller foundations and might need more plantings. Jeff and I were satisfied with what was done. Jillian had questions and thought that maybe it needed.
Maybe just to shift more of the green to the left. Right now, the tall one had an evergreen, sort of I don't know if it was a flowering tree, and then an evergreen. I always feel like the evergreens, to balance out the siding portion to the stairs, could be moved over a bit, just to help fill in that space a little bit more.
Is anyone here from one of the units that was landscaped?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda Pufke, and I'm from 14 Boxwood, and that's actually my house there. Yeah, so we did actually have that discussion as they were planting. So the one that looks like a skinny kind of...
Between the two evergreens, kind of?
Between the two evergreens is going to plump up and should get fuller, we're hoping. So once that does get fuller, we're hoping that that'll kind of balance it out. Also, if you look at the stake that's in the yard, that's going to be where our tree is going to go.
Okay.
So that was kind of our thought, was that, hey, we've got a lot of stairs going down this way, we'd like the tree to be over here to block, kind of the
gas.
The gas line that's coming out from there, and then balance out each side of the house.
What I'm saying is, I don't think we want to micromanage the process. The plans he gave us, the examples he gave us, it's all working. But he's dealing at this point with existing homeowners and what they want in their yards and how they want it. So he needs to be able to adjust accordingly and keep things. If you have a tomato plant already, or a tomato bed already planted where the plan shows some hostas going, you may want to keep your tomato bed.
So where we left this at the last meeting was that since your landscape plan was plans were inconsistent, the ones presented and the ones approved for building permit, we were leaving our building enforcement officer with no way of determining when the lot was complete to grant the certificate of occupancy. I need your decision as a landscape committee to guide him, because we said we're not going to require any kind of a holdback or a bond for landscaping, but the final occupancy would require that the landscaping that we determined would be your responsibility at a minimum be done before he give the final occupancy.
So just to fill this in a little bit, when we came to meet with Cheryl, Jeff, and Julian, we brought our landscape architect. On the plans that you're referring to, the sample plans that are in there, we chose 3 lots, 25, which was one of the samples, 13, which was one of the samples, and then lot number 35, which was at the request of the landscape committee because it was a undercar garage unit, taller. So the plant types are identical to what's on the plans. There are a myriad of plant types that are shown on the sample plan. And we all discussed that, the plants would be dependent obviously on the time of year, and they would be also dependent on what's available at the nursery. But we all agreed that the mixture of plants that were on there was more than robust enough to be able to put them in. And I think we put 13 plants in on all 3 of the installations. And the sample plan also shows a tree, which the landscape architect spoke to. And again, I'm not a landscape architect, but he talked about the north side, the south side, the west side, the east side, you know, as to getting the plants that would live on each of them. So that's what we went and retrieved at the nursery, and then we agreed we would meet with each of the individual unit owners before we installed the plants, because as you said, if they have 3 or 4 plants in the front of their house now, we're not gonna be rooting up their plants to put in new plants, and the samples, provided that you can landscape the front or the sides, which is what we did. So the plant types, in terms of what Roland, you know, was originally asked for direction, are what's on the plant. The trees, the plants are all on the existing plant.
So basically, let me fill this in. Basically, he's gone back to the original landscape plan that's already filed and is doing it.
No, that is not what's happening.
Isn't it?
Because the
On the
original
example?
plan was much more extensive, but you took the types of plants that were on the original plan and you put them, and you committed to putting 13
Correct, I think
plants.
that's where you averaged the number.
And we also, there was some discussion about when they filed the, whatever they have to
UDP.
file, the UDP, that I don't think landscaping needs to be included in that, which it hasn't been, which I think is fine. But Sherry was just referring to the CO being issued after landscaping has been completed as we go forward. Okay.
Okay, working with Mr. Gallagher has been fairly easy on this project, and we all agreed that when we get to a certain point in the project, when it comes down to the last few certificate of occupancies, I'm gonna start really detailing on what the whole project looks like, and we're here. This is where we are. So I'm asking guidance from the board, which you did, to go out on the site and review it and say, this is what we need. We also have asked other departments, you know, the planning board, any other department that's involved, the light and water, do you have any issues? Conservation, do you have any issues? And they're coming back with all their issues, and we're gonna resolve these before the last few COs are issued. That's the intent. I mean,
So-
that's my bond.
So, Mr. Gallagher, you provided us with those landscaping plans.
We did.
Can you please make sure that Mr. Barringer gets them?
We did, we gave him copies when we met.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we
So
provided him
it-
with everything that you have.
It sounds to me like the landscaping is agreeable to the subcommittee, to you, and to building inspector. But your conversation just segued us a little bit into what I'm concerned about is that when Mr. Gallagher sells the last house and pulls out, that all of the lots have been stabilized, that there's no loose gravel and no runoff. I will say that I drove through about every other day since our last meeting and am absolutely amazed at how much you accomplished, as you promised you would do. And even today,
You
the
moved
last
mountains.
paved surface is done, you moved mountains. There are still lots on the high side of hills that are unstable that I think will create some runoff just until you stabilize, you know, finish the construction and stabilize them, some dirt mounded and stuff, but they're still under construction. I leave it to Mr. Bernier to solve that problem. I didn't see any evidence that there were stormwater drainage structures of any sort, except the ones that have been lifted, the structures that have been lifted and then the road paved to it. I didn't see any detention basins or anything that looked like it might be your responsibility.
Responsibility's a gray line, only because although this was permitted by David and company, we were there. We pay for a certain amount to a cap of money into all of it. So we had some responsibility on the corner of Buttercup that's now been extinguished, where our road came down against the wetland. We had overfilled that. I had written to that. I'd written twice about that to the board in the past 2 weeks, as you asked me to update you. We have stabilized that on the left slope, and we also had a responsibility adjacent to Building 3 that when we built Unit 56, we had covered over drainage structure that was there, that we have since uncovered, and we've stabilized that entire area. I spoke to Amy Green last night, and so our part of the COC is pretty simple compared to the rest. We will have our as-built done within 10 days now that we've paved. And we're going to make arrangements with David and Amy to walk the property. But she was aware of all the work that had been done. She'd been out and inspected it and looked at it, and actually was quite complimentary of the work we did.
So when I drove down Boxwood and I got to the last street on the left, which was the last one you paved.
Okay, that was the first one.
In fact, I think it was the last one. I was in the Showbiz Way when they were paving it.
Yeah, we paved from the back out.
Oh, okay.
We worked it.
Anyway, Boxwood, continuing on to the residential homes beyond, is not completed. Is that a base
No,
coat?
they did that for us, correct. So David, I say David, they paved 4 weeks ago, the major Boxwood area. They stopped at the corner of Building 3 for us because they're installing the curbing and the top coat at the same time. And we have 6 houses on that section, just about 6 houses that are incomplete, in the final process of being completed. And if he had paved, he would have frozen us out from being able to move at all.
Who owns the residential homes beyond that? Is that?
Becca.
So that's neither of you?
No.
Who's responsible to pave, like from Building 3 back toward those residential houses, and whose bond would that be to finish that portion?
So that's 15 Great Road, which is one of my partners, and there's money set aside for that. We just didn't do it because...
That was my question.
Yeah, so it's scheduled for the middle of September, so it'll happen.
So on August 7th, you had created this long laundry list of things undone, and it looks like a lot of them have since gotten done. Did you update that?
I haven't updated it.
I'm still on Rockland.
So
It's on
I would
Rockland.
agree a lot of it has been done.
Okay.
So I think Mark has really put a lot of focus on getting this stuff done, which I really appreciate.
Maybe he was scared of you, because he wasn't scared of us.
That's not a fair.
I think he's scared of rolling.
You're going to blow his ego
All right, can I ask the people who came tonight, are you more or less impressed that Mr. Gallagher got as much done as he did since our last meeting, and are you beginning to feel like your neighborhood is stabilizing?
Yeah, back in the landscaping. First a comment and a question. The comment is that since last May, June, I've been an adversary of Mark Gallagher on this landscaping when I first challenged him on it, because it didn't adhere to what I saw were the conditions of the town. But since seeing the plans and seeing the 3 samples, I am very pleased with the progress. So I want to compliment him on that.
Thank you very much.
The question is, execution.
Mine?
No, Mark, not now.
I'm curious, Gary.
I think I know where you're going, sir. May I? You've already done your yard and put a lot of money and time into it.
Indeed.
And you're wondering how you can be compensated,
No.
it's not compensated, but helped along or.
No, I'm actually not looking for any payback or anything.
Because
Give him
he's
any
supposed to
ideas,
provide you
stop.
with plants too.
Let him finish.
Well, that gets to, a part of the question is, there's people that put nothing to very much into their landscaping. And I presume that Mark will be going to each and every owner to present the opportunity to do up to X number of plants, and the owners will then say, I'll take it all, or I'll take a subset of it. Is that a proper assumption?
Can they take a subset?
You know,
I don't think they can take
we
a
can get,
subset.
we have 50 certificate of occupancies, we have 6 to go. I don't think we can not give the same thing to everybody. That's how we talked about it, and that's how we set it up.
He has to give everyone the same thing. You've already done your yard though, and so he can give it to you, he can modify and plant what you want, or
I guess all I want to just affirm is to be a discussion with each one of us whether or not we feel we're totally finished, thank you very much, we're done, or, yeah, I could use a couple of those plants on the side of my yard, or, yeah, I need the whole thing.
So, Mr. Sawyer, what do you envision this board is supposed to do if the houses that have already sold don't feel satisfied with what their developer offers to them for landscaping. I don't want this board to be in a position of having 40 of you come back and say, Mark only gave me 9 trees and not 13 or 9
Well, that's why we
plants.
agreed on the mix.
Yes, please.
I did a project with a developer in Bill Ricca, and we offered landscaping to the surrounding neighbors at the inception of the project. And some people didn't want it, so we also offered them water and sewer connections, and a couple of people didn't want those either. We had release forms drawn up, and we said, we're giving you 13 plants, and if you don't want it, sign this release form.
Yeah.
And we'll bring those back to you for the people that don't want it.
So may I suggest that the landscaping, now that we've identified what we want as part of the decision, be your problem?
We'll take care of it.
Thank you.
We also are instructing him to please be flexible with people who had already done their yards. For example, if the sample plan shows a tree where you've put a tomato bed, obviously, we don't want your tomato bed ripped out to put a tree that you don't want there.
Next question, what's the schedule for this?
That's the last question
Yeah.
I have. What's the schedule?
Mark, what's the
Sorry.
schedule?
I'm sorry, he was
When do you-
asking
when
me
do
a
you,
question.
when do you want to,
Well, now
when
that
do you
we're
think you can
going to be
accomplish
clear to
this?
go,
Okay.
once we're clear to go, we believe that we can do 3 houses a day, probably
Okay.
3 days a week, so inside of 5 weeks, we'll be done.
I have 2 hands up here.
You're gonna need rain
You,
days.
sir, I haven't heard from you yet.
Yes, hi.
Your name again?
Arjun here from 14 Morning Glory. So is lamp post part of the landscape?
My feeling about the lampposts are that they're really superfluous. In other words, your front porch light would be 5 feet from the lamppost. And though they were included on the original one, my opinion is they should not be installed.
But at the Morning Glory and the Hyssop Lane, there is a big significant gap between the houses, and it is completely dark.
It is. I flew in from LA last night and got in at 2 in the morning.
Okay, one
And because of the paving, I had to park down at the clubhouse.
one at a time. I have the attorney wanting to answer the.
The condition says that the landscaping shall at a minimum be as shown on the final plans. It does not say the hardscaping shall be as shown on the plans.
Well-
That's a descriptive picture of a fence, or, not a fence, but a post or a light. That's the owner's responsibility. The 13
Well, this
plans
was
constitute the landscape.
on the typical.
Sample.
The sample plan, there was a lamppost shown.
No,
And
no.
it was a generic lot.
Without.
But it doesn't refer to street lighting. It's not, that's not what that means. It meant a decorative post with a lamp that people have at the end of their driveways if they have long driveways.
Can we get a post in this dark?
As originally planned, I mean, he gave us some marketing document that this is how your landscape and things like that. Your site will be like this, there will be land, plants and all that. You know, that had the lamp post.
Okay, one moment.
You said what, I'm sorry? Repeat that one more time for me? Hold
No,
on a second.
the marketing brochure.
The marketing brochure.
Through the chair.
Excuse me, what-
Mr. Gallagher, no.
Right?
Through the chair, no.
Okay.
No, you can answer him through the chair, thank you.
Okay. So, just to kind of cut this short, we'll provide you with this. I sent this to Roland early week. We talked earlier about the contracts. I only made 5 copies, I apologize.
Please hand one to the gentleman with whom you
Sure.
did. I'll share with Cheryl, you can hand mine. Thank you.
No, not this.
Hold on one second. So, in the contracts, for every single owner that is in this room, and every owner that is not in this room, and the prospective buyers that have purchased from us, they're provided with a purchase and sale agreement, which they read, have reviewed with their attorneys, and signed. Attachments to it include the exclusive use area that they're going to be deeded, and it also includes the specifications. Specifications that you have there were vetted by this board, by the affordable consultant that you used on November 13th, 2014. That is included in every package. If you'll recall, those of the members that are here, we provided these specifications generically across all of the construction that we did, both market rate and affordable. The affordable consultant you used was very surprised that we didn't deviate on any of our homes that are affordable from our specifications and market rate, and commended us for doing so. Every single customer in this room has that document. It's part of it, reviewed by their attorney. To come back now and state that they saw anything else is disingenuous, and they're trying to market after the fact. Hold on one second. Not only does it address landscaping, it addresses all the specifications throughout it, and that was given as part of the comprehensive permit review.
Okay, I'm not questioning.
Well, but there will be questions, so.
I'm not questioning the request of putting lampposts on every lot at all.
I'm not either.
But I just heard a comment that there's a corner that's dark at the intersection of two roads. Is there a way to light that corner? Is it too late to light that corner? You got me?
So Boxwood, and David, you can help me here. Boxwood, when you approve the plans, has some lighting on it. No, there's more than one light, isn't there? That's five. It's four on Boxwood, because it was determined by the board that we needed to have lighting on Boxwood. There is no lighting within any of the common driveways that we built, either Morning Glory, High Sock. I believe what she was referring to when she came home from LA at 2 a.m., it wasn't the intersection, and correct me if I'm wrong, of Boxwood and Morning Glory. It's when they got up the top of the hill, that at 2 o'clock in the morning, there is no lights on any of the houses. So
It was the intersection of Morning Glory and Hyssop, where
Hyssop, which is up there. So
that huge area, it was pitch black.
it would be
As is most of our town.
extremely difficult. I won't say impossible. I'm going to say it's extremely difficult to provide any light. You know, we just finish coated all of the roads and put all the curbing in.
Okay, that was the question.
Yeah.
Sir, you wanted to show the board something. I didn't want to shut you down.
So you will take it?
We'll keep it. We'll keep it from the last time.
Shelley, do you have the plans with you?
We cannot address marketing representations here. We are only addressing the permit that we granted. And we did not make a requirement that there be lampposts on every lot or in every village or in every corner. What you're showing me in terms of a marketing brochure is something that you need to take up with Mr. Gallagher. It's a separate issue altogether.
Yeah, the other issue is, you know, if there's a light post in front of somebody's yard, doesn't mean it's gonna be on.
Right.
I mean, the person may not wanna spend the money to, you know, pay for that light, and so I live on a street that, there's got long sections of it, just dark.
I think they're talking more of, like street lamp.
Street lamp's different, but.
We don't have
Which
much
we-
noise
which
street
we-
lamps
we
in
had no
Littleton these
provision of
days.
street lamps.
Turn most
Can we
of them
have a
off, I
solar
don't
light?
need it. I don't need them, we turn them all off.
Oh, you could look next to
You
the
can
street
put a
lamp.
solar light on your lot.
No, as a lamp, as
What?
a kind of a street light.
I think you'd have to go to your condo
Condo
association.
association.
And I'd also tell you that in some surrounding communities, street lamps are literally not allowed, nor is lighting on your porch or whatever, because they have night, what they're called night sky. So you're sort of, there's a move toward less lighting rather than more lighting.
Light pollution.
Light pollution.
And energy
Okay,
wasting.
we need to move along.
Yeah, everyone's cell phone has a flashlight these days, that helps.
Yes, Mr.
It doesn't, because I dropped my luggage off at my house.
Excuse me,
and then drove away.
there's a gentleman speaking. Go ahead.
You're holding 6 certificates of occupancy hostage. In good faith, Mark's worked with the landscape committee to do something reasonable with regard retroactively to 50 COs that have already been issued. So I'd like to propose, I don't think it needs to be a condition of permit, more likely it needs to be a condition of enforcement, but I want there to be an understanding. So here's my proposal. The developer shall make reasonable progress to complete landscape installation before 10/15/17. That's roughly 60 days from today. Reasonable progress will be defined as 6 homes per week, weather permitting. The last CO to be issued shall be withheld until the completion of all required landscaping per condition 43.
Let me just accent that a bit. We also talked about the bank giving a letter about the $50,000 not being dispersed until stabilized. That had to do with paving, I know, but
$50,000's been spent.
On the paving,
Yeah,
okay.
We dropped the first 25,000.
And you
a week
also
ago.
talked about allowing us to hold the last CO until all the landscaping.
There's a lot of profit.
That was up to you.
I propose, I'll give you 2 affordables, I have no problem with that, so that leaves 3 in question. As we move forward towards the end of the project, I'll release COs, but the last one will be a market rate.
Well, we said that we'd leave one market rate behind for you.
Perfect. I
So the
didn't
last
clarify
one.
market rate, but, you know.
That's, you're both saying the
Do we
same
need to
thing.
close out, we need to close out the affordables.
You're both saying the same
Amend
thing.
what you just did to include that market rate, and please hand that to my
But
admin, and we'll...
I'm uncomfortable with tying it just specifically to the landscaping. I mean, wouldn't it be better to
No,
be
no,
general?
no, only-
He's going to want it to say landscaping and all the boards being satisfied that all of the work is done.
And also in receipt of a peer review of the entire project with an approval saying that it is in compliance with what was intended. I mean, I'm not jumping into culverts and catch basins, I'm just not
But
doing
we're
it.
providing an as-built for the COC. There is no other requirements in the permit for us. We've provided you with an as-built that you requested.
But how do I know that you have the correct thickness on your hot top?
You
That
don't, but
you're
you
right,
never
I
know. It's not part of the 40B permit, and we're not gonna go back now at this late date and employ a third-party peer review. It wasn't envisioned, and it's costly, and this is a 40B, and it's based upon profitability, and we're below 15%. So
Roland,
we
does
just
it-
can't shoulder it.
Don't those determinations happen by you having light and water and the highway department and...
No, it's a private project, they don't go in there. Light and water will do light and water.
Yeah.
Conservation will not enter culverts and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just...
But you're gonna get an as-built in the culverts.
Well, you know, if I receive an approval from conservation, then we're good to go. But if I don't, we have a problem.
Well, then conservation has to be one of the conditions before releasing that last lot. And are you worried about the pavement thickness?
I'm worried about everything.
His job.
Since it isn't a town-owned property, a town-owned road,
But it's a town-owned special permit. So we own that project up to the very end. Because when
Fire
I
department's
issued
doing
that last CO, it's like hands off now.
What about fire
And
department?
we're still receiving comments from the individual departments, but the fire department still has some concerns. They're drawing up a list. Conservation gave us a list that she's gonna update because some things have been done. But it goes back to, a lot of this falls into 15 Great Road as a whole, not just Wildflower Meadows, so.
What if we, why don't we say, let's wait on the last CO until all of the boards have signed off, and if any one of the boards has concerns or issues that aren't met, then we can revisit this issue
Well, that's
about
why it's
whether there
gonna
should be peer review or something.
Sure.
could the
the
highway
apartments
department
done?
give some expert opinion about the paving?
You can ask them.
They're not
Have the-
public roads.
What about
Has the
Neshoba?
apartment complex received all of its COs?
Yes.
And so we're just relying on the bond still there?
It's unfortunate that there's some pavement that Mr. Hale owns, but, you know, and it's being attached to Mr. Gallagher's CO. There's nothing I can do about that. I look at 15 Great Road as one project, not
Well, I
two
understand
developers. And so that's, David Hale finished
But-
his project first.
But you can hold his bond, can't you? Where are
The
we holding his
town can
bond
hold
still?
his bond, sure.
We're still holding his bond.
Well, that's David Hale's bond.
That's David
Right.
Hale's bond.
Right, well, there's things he still needs to finish, so,
Agreed.
It's in the best interest of both David and I to finish the project.
of course.
Just that we need to be able to move people into houses. We're putting up something that we never anticipated, which is our last CO. I think that's more than significant enough, considering that in the next 2 closings, we'll pay off the term loan to the bank. There'll be a significant amount of money at risk here for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally almost all of our profit in this thing. And, you know, we understand, at least I understand, what the comprehensive permit says and what the review process says. So we're gonna be proactive in getting on that.
I have a question.
I think David will be as well.
Can we
Okay, I've got a
segue
question
into-
over here.
So I have a question that's related to.
Name, please.
Sorry, Jay Supple. I have a question related to driveways and pavement. So my driveway is 1 or 2 inches below my garage level. And when we got the communication on what was gonna happen for paving, I sent an email, actually twice, asking what's the regulation on whether it wants to come up to the garage level or not. And I've taken a survey of different driveways all over, and I see it vary, in some places 4 inches because of a dip. As things have settled, some driveways go right up to the lip of the garage. So I need to figure out when is it considered finished, because I don't know how many coats are put on, and when is it going to be finished. I need something objective.
Mr. Gallagher.
I've asked twice, I have no response.
I haven't gotten anything from you.
I sent 2 emails.
I haven't got one from you. So, I'm going to give you my last copy. Last page. You signed that. As I said, everyone was in here. We put in a 2-inch binder course, construction course, for everybody that's in this room. Before we started paving 2 weeks ago, we sent out 2 or 3 emails to every owner that's on the property, and asked if they wanted to have a finished course applied to their homes. Neshoba gave a killer price of $985 complete, including the walkways. And probably 12 to 15 homeowners out of the 56 committed to it, and they're writing their checks directly to Neshoba. For those that don't, we're doing an apron off of the road to every single house. The apron, depending on the slope and depending on the distance, could run 12 feet to a driveway, it could run 3 feet, it could run 5 feet.
So part of your contract wasn't paving the driveway?
Our contract says for landscaping that we will hydroseed, lumen seed 25 feet around the house and any disturbed areas. And it says that your paving is a 2-inch construction course, compacted, which is 1.5 inches finished. And we've provided that in every single home that has been occupied, to my knowledge. Obviously, the houses that we have not finished, we haven't done. So about 15, I'm going to say, homeowners stepped up and decided that they wanted to spend the $985. I've talked to a myriad of the other homeowners. Some have decided, they asked how long the pavement would last that's there. Some want a seal coat. On top of that, because of the way that we paved, when you pave, you have to pull the entire road. So at the end of every street, whoever was on the end was the recipient of the top coat and their walkways. If they had contacted us, and remember some of this goes back 3 years, and they had problems with their driveway. As an example, when you drive up Morning Glory Circle, the first house on the right, since the day they moved in, have had problems with their driveway. We put it in at a time of year that was cooler, and it palled, the rocks came up. So we met with the paving company when Neshoba top coated, and they agreed that anybody that had a problem with their driveway, they would top coat it as part of the paving for the entire project. So if they contacted us over the last 3 years, and we went and saw them, and they said there was an issue, we brought Neshoba up, and Neshoba did the right thing and agreed to pave their driveway for free. So we believe that we've extinguished our responsibilities, those are contractual responsibilities between Wildflower Village LLC and the homeowner. They got a copy of the specifications, they read them, they're part of their contract, and everybody in this room, as well as on the property, received exactly what's there. Some received more, but they would have had to come to us and indicate that there was an issue with the paving, and then we introduced Neshoba to make a determination if there was a problem with the paving.
It's easy to see how people would misunderstand a finished coat versus a construction coat. And it's easy to understand why people would think automatically they would get a finished coat. And it's also easy for people to see that people might be being patient and not fussing at you, expecting to get a finished coat when you finish coated the driveway, and not realizing that that was not part of their deal. However, technically, it looks like that's what he sold them. What is your,
I don't think there's anything in our decision that speaks to paving every driveway, so I think that that is an issue between the developer and the buyer, and I don't think that's part of our purview. I just want to
So
double check
when
myself.
we received the first email question about this, we obviously asked legal counsel to pour over the permit to make sure that we had not made a mistake. We also asked our engineer to pour over the plans to ensure that there weren't anything in there that would lead the buyer to believe otherwise. And we believe that we are correct in our position.
So with that in mind, if I might, restate what I suggested before.
All right, two more hands up. Alex?
Thank you, Alex Parra, D'Agostino Levine, representing 15 Great Road. Hearing the discussion about the release of occupancy certificates, we seem to have kind of reversed the process that's contemplated in the permit, which is that no COs would be issued in any particular construction phase until the elements of the infrastructure have been fully bonded. And so now and it's just, it's plainly set forth in condition 54 of the decision. I might add that that was something that was discussed at great length with town council when this was discussed. But we've now reversed somehow this bonding provision so that no bond is required, and we're just going to hold the last occupancy certificate. And I would just suggest to the board two things.
we have your bond.
Excuse me, can I finish?
Sorry, I apologize.
Just suggest two things. One is that you really have no idea as to what the quote-unquote equity is in the last unit. But more importantly, you have no mechanism to convert that equity to liquidate it for the purpose of completing the work that is Mr. Gallagher's to complete. The other thing is, as far as I'm aware, there's been no valuation of the cost of performing the remaining work that is Mr. Gallagher's to complete in order to determine what is an appropriate amount of bonding in order to ensure its completion. My client did what is required of the decision, which is to post a bond for the completion of his work, and that bond is there, and we would request that you do the same with respect to Mr. Gallagher. Now, having said all of that, I do want to say that we are appreciative of all the work that Mr. Gallagher has done in the past few weeks. And I would suggest that perhaps the reason that got done quickly and done so quickly is that the board made a determination at the last meeting to withhold all occupancy certificates until the work was done. I don't know what's changed in between except for...
The work got done.
Well, not all of it has been done. But
What's remaining, Alex? What's remaining to do?
Well, in most significant portion is there's some paving that remains to be done, and there is some...
That's not Mr. Gallagher's paving.
And there are no as-bills that have been submitted as far as we're aware.
As-built of what? Each lot or the final,
Of
the whole
work
project?
To obtain a certificate of compliance for conservation.
Okay.
So
It's
it's not a,
we said at the last hearing to Mr. Gallagher, and in fairness, we've had a couple of informal meetings in between where he has attempted to negotiate the requirements for a bond, and during those meetings said, never mind, I'll just complete the work, because I really don't want to negotiate how much the bond is going to be or itemize every single item that it needs to be done. I'll just complete the work. He told me maybe 2 weeks ago he wasn't sure he'd get it all done, but he was certainly going to try. He got it all done as far as I'm concerned. I was on the site. What's not done is the word in from the Conservation Commission and the as-built plan, and that's it. And our enforcement officer has stated that he feels that there is enough assurance in holding that last CO on a market unit, he made it very clear, on a market unit, that those things will get done because that's enough security to do it. Now, we're not the planning board. We're not in the business of bonding. When we were here a month ago, we said, there's an awful lot undone. I want an itemization, and we need to talk to town council about whether we can ask for a bond this late. We didn't need the itemization. I asked you, you said it's done. So I'm not willing to open the floor up to look at bonding requirements once my enforcement officer tells me he's okay with the last unit being a market unit, and we're holding that.
But I would say your efforts, your and Mr. Hill's efforts, probably played a part in moving this along, moving the work along.
Well, I'm sure he did it because he didn't want to come up with a bond. There's no question about that. And your influence here caused that, so that's not a problem.
And he wants to be done. I'm sure you, both of you gentlemen want to be done.
I have another hand in the back, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can just quickly go back to the land. Oh, I'm sorry, Toshi Sakota, 7 Camden Lane. Just going back to the landscaping, you mentioned that there's a plan to basically have, I think, 13 shrubs, plants, whatever, and something kind of detailed as a, there's maybe the maximum, and I'm trying to clarify if that's required for every home, or is that giving us flexibility that if we want less than that we have that, but at the same time, if there can be maybe a minimum, that there's at least some landscaping that's done? So
13.
13's the minimum.
13's the minimum.
Oh, it is the, okay. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
if you say I don't want it, they're going to have you sign a waiver that you were satisfied with 11.
Okay,
13's
but you
the
can
minimum.
have flexibility to do less than that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then.
You could also ask him to provide plants that you might want here. If you're thinking, gee, I'd really like a couple of hostas here, but, you know, the plan shows, and I've done all the landscaping over there, but the plan shows other things.
So then, that being said, then, are you saying that someone could just opt out of everything, sign a release that I don't want any landscaping done, period? Or that there's gotta be some minimum landscaping done of some sort, just
That's a really good question.
Are we allowing that? I don't think we're allowing that, because he still has control over.
It's a benefit to the whole neighborhood to have landscape.
Right, you know what I'm saying, yeah, I'd like to see that we have like a minimum threshold of, you gotta have some land, you can't just say, I don't want anything.
I think it was envisioned, the opting out was for people who had already done planting.
Okay.
But there should be a minimum
I
landscape.
mean, if I don't want 30 plants,
That would be the intention of.
I want
our
10,
original
but I can't say I want 0, and I don't want anything, that we have a minimum threshold of something.
Right.
If you already have 13 plants and you don't want any more, I think that would be okay. But if you don't have, you only have 10 plants, then you have to have at least 3 more, kind of.
No, I guess in my case.
That makes sense,
none of my landscape is
Mr. Gallagher?
really for the plants, so I'm just saying, if I'm a.
My understanding from the proposal that Mark Borbowski, because there's a lot of Marks in the room, brought forward was that 13 was the number, which is essentially what we agreed to
Everyone gets
at
13
the
plants.
subcommittee. You know, I don't think that putting 13 is very difficult on anybody's site. Obviously, if somebody is fully landscaped, Oleg in lot 18 is fully landscaped, 17 is, you know, I would assume fully landscaped. You know, maybe they don't want the 13 plants because they're fully landscaped or are going into the property where there's sod or other.
Maybe they'll get house plants.
I'm giving you. I'm sure you can find use for them.
I can always find room for
Wait a minute.
Your concern is that
One
your
at a
neighbor not
time,
accept
please.
landscaping and.
So I guess from my perspective, for instance, I haven't, you know, I've talked to Mark, but we haven't done anything yet about talking about specifics. But if there, so my yard hasn't been, quote, landscaped. I haven't done anything there, you know, so, and there are a number of neighbor homes like that where nothing's been done yet. He hasn't gotten to us yet. So, what I'm hearing is that I have the option to, when he comes to me to say, well, I don't want 13, I want 12, or I want 10, I'm saying, if I'm a house like that, where you can't just say, I don't want anything.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying.
He's
For
got
people
a
that have it done, that's fine, it's done, they don't, you know, but for people who haven't got it done yet, that there's some minimum they have to have.
He's got to satisfy the sample plans that he read off earlier that were drawn up by the landscape committee and Mark. He's got to satisfy that. If you don't want 1 or 2 of those, you can waive 1 or 2 of those because they don't work in your
If you've already
exposure or
landscaped.
whatever.
But you could-
Mr., over here again, please.
Only Patricia.
I'm very glad that Mark is working with individual owners of landscaping respective lots. I'm also worried about common areas, landscaping in common areas, which are not in exclusive area of respective owners. So there are a couple of patches behind Hyssop Lane, on the corner of Hyssop Lane and Morning Glory.
Are you paying condo fees, all of you paying condo fees?
Yes.
And you're going to establish a transition team and a condominium association? You will be voting on what to do with the common landscaping in the common areas, okay?
And you will be using your condo fees to do it and
So
in deciding what you
It's
want.
not part of the general
We-
permit or plan, how
We have a
landscaping.
we have a landscape plan as part of this decision he has to adhere to. Doing more than that is not necessary.
And that includes only individual lots and not common areas?
No, there was a common area landscape plan in the initial development proposal for the whole project.
But it was primarily street trees and screening to the adjacent neighborhoods.
Are we talking about the whole project yet? Because I am dying to talk about the
No.
whole project.
Can we finish this with this?
Okay, I'll shut up.
Well, we'd just like to be done. So we can move forward and be done over the next 60 days, as Mark outlined.
Mr. Perrin.
So, thank you. Since we're not following condition 54, may I ask for clarification as to how Mr. Bernier is going to determine when the last certificate of occupancy can be issued?
Mr. Bernier.
Thank you. When the project's complete.
What does that mean?
I had it in my
Okay.
draft.
Do you want to read it?
Sure, here's the whole thing. The developer shall make reasonable progress to complete landscaping installations before 10/15/17. Reasonable progress shall mean 6 homes a week, weather permitting. Last market rate CO shall be withheld until the completion of all required landscaping per condition 43 and the sign-off of all town departments. Any waiver by a unit owner of landscaping minimum required shall be approved by the building commissioner on an unlandscaped lot. That's the thing you just mentioned. So if you got no landscaping today, you can't just say, I want it. He has to give a waiver.
I don't think we want him to have to give a waiver. I think it has to be landscaped.
Okay, but what is
You have
minimum
the
landscaping required?
13 plants as
I don't want to have arm
delineated.
wresting out
No,
there
but
inside the enclosed
13
area.
plants on these plots is nothing.
So no one can refuse the minimum
Yes, I
requirement.
think you should use the 13 plants.
That's how I read it.
I don't want Mr. Bernier having to,
So the only people
You
who
still-
can ask for waivers are those with 13 or more plants.
exactly.
That's fair, but I'm sure people have taken the care to landscape, they probably want more plants.
And you
If
fo-
you don't want plants and you get 13, you have permission to kill a couple.
That's right.
And
My yard is torn apart.
I gotta remind you guys, the way that this condominium association is set up, it's with individual use lots. That means you're just like a regular neighborhood, that you may drive down a street and you're going to see someone's yard constantly needs mowing and someone's yard doesn't. You're going to you have an association to police yourselves. But other than that, you are individual use lots. You're going to do different things and have different looks and have different taste.
Okay, we're beginning to repeat ourselves. I'm going to give everybody about 5 more minutes on Mr. Gallagher. And then, no, we get the whole project. In the back here.
Hi, my name is Sudhir and I live over in lot 56 towards the conservation land. And Mark, for the past week, he did a very good job with the storm drains and stuff. But there is still, he acknowledges that there is still work to do with the runoff water or the conservation land towards, putting rocks or whatever. But that doesn't come under this permission. I just want to confirm if that comes under this permission or will it only come under conservation, the certificate or what?
Our building enforcement officer has said the conservation sign-off is necessary for him to call this project done. Okay, does that satisfy you? So the conservation will decide if it's done or not. If they say it's done, then he can call it done. Okay. In the back.
Hi, my name is Mark Carlin. I have one of the lots that Mark landscaped. I just want to make sure that I was clear on the driveway issue. I understand that Mark is not, or I understand from you that you're not holding Mark responsible for the finish coat of the driveway. And
Evidently, we
he's given an
can't.
option- And he's given an option for people to pay for it. But if the option is there to take it or not to take it, when you drive down Boxwood Drive or any of the roads, you're gonna see some paved and some not, and it's just not.
Tehadawon Road is like that, Foster Street is like that, that's how a community is. If you drove by my house, you would probably pull your bumper off.
It's not that bad.
Well, there's a big difference.
She's one of my neighbors.
But I've got
It's the goats that get me.
I've got to tell you, Mark, it's unusual not to provide a finished coat. I see these documents and all that stuff, but
Jeff,
it's,
I build $800,000 houses, I put one coat down. Every single one of them the same. Maine, Massachusetts, those are my standard specs. They were provided to you guys and to your consultant. I'm not disagreeing with you. but
I'm
we
not
don't
going
do
after you for it.
No, I
I'm just
understand.
saying from this
Don't do it.
homeowner's point of view.
I did, and if it was a more lucrative project and we didn't remove 80,000 cubic yards of rock, then I probably would have some money in the kitty to do it, but you're looking at double the amount of money that I've already spent. So we're looking at $65,000, $56,000, I'm sorry, to repave all these driveways. Some of these people paid $380,000 for their homes. You know, there's no margin of error in a comprehensive permit, none. Not when you remove 80,000 cubic yards of rock. So it's just a
I
hard.
had another question over here, thank you.
Thank you. At the risk of beating a dead horse, sign off by the Conservation Commission includes a certificate of compliance?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, is that correct?
What's that?
Sign off of Conservation Commission.
Yes.
Does that constitute a certificate, issuing a certificate of compliance?
As long as the Conservation Commission tells me they're done, they're done. Whatever documentation they receive on their own is up to them.
So I have to change my answer, Alex, only because you often can't get a CFC until a growing season. And that is not fair to hold up Mr. Gallagher's last permit if everything else is done except the final growing season that needs to happen. We all know that in our industry, that you often do go to a closing without the CFC if that's the only thing left.
It was an undertaking to do it.
Yeah, well, we'll get an undertaking to do it if that's what Mr. Bernier thinks
Hey,
we ought
Alex,
to have.
I'll bet you a feast tonight that I beat you to the altar. Want to bet? And I'll save David quite a bit.
Okay,
my-
I'd like to
my-
move
No,
on.
that's
No,
something
I said I was going to exhaust this discussion. I'd like to move on to the whole project. Unless there's something absolutely new. Your name, please.
My name is Avni Patel and 4 Hyssop Land, Randy. And they make road, so road is little up and our pavement is little down, lower. So when it's gonna rain, then it's gonna full with water.
What unit number are you? I'm sorry.
4 Hyssop Land.
I'm sorry?
Four
Give me a lot
19.
number.
19.
19.
Yeah.
It's next to the old model. Yep. So Hyssop drains onto Morning Glory. None of the,
She's on the upside.
you're right, but none of the entranceways have been paved yet. The driveway entrances haven't been paved on any of the driveways, with the
So
exception.
she's going to get an apron that takes
Yeah,
care of that.
yeah.
He said you're not, he's not done with your house yet. He's not giving you a finished pavement, but he's giving you an apron that will take care of it.
Everybody gets an apron, even though everybody on Boxwood, everywhere.
Can you define apron for it? Because I see the look of confusion.
Right, so on Boxwood, as an example, when the main road was paved, there was no entranceways paved from the main road into each individual lot. The water needs to stay in the road, that's how the system works. So our Neshoba is going back to every single driveway and paving anywhere between 3 foot and 12 foot into the driveway to create a level entrance and adjust to the existing pavement. Some go uphill, some go downhill, and there will be a berm, if you will, at the very front that contains the water within the road. So at
So
the end
did
of the day, none of the driveways will be taking water.
So a berm is a bump that should help keep the water on the road and not flooding down into your driveway. And he's saying they haven't done that yet.
Right, they haven't got it yet.
So,
I also want to just comment, if you say Neshoba's coming back one more time, Will there be another opportunity for those who missed the
It's
notice
open.
about paving to get paved again?
Yeah, there were some special requests that Neshoba didn't have the time to address. Some people wanted to enlarge their driveways, some people wanted more parking spaces, so Neshoba couldn't do them all. You know, the main goal was by today to be done with 100% of the paving, the roads, the curbs.
Can you get him to come pave my driveway for it? Can you get him to come pave my driveway?
All right, I've got one more here, and then Mr. Bobrowski's going to wrap it up. Go ahead.
You made, no issue, old issue. I was very gratified to hear that we can water our yards. But the devil's in the details. The permit specifically says that we're precluded from watering by irrigation except by well. That's in the permit.
And Mr. Gallagher thought that that was true, and that was why it was put in there?
I don't know why it was put in there.
I guess I'd request that you strike that from the permit. If
Where do you
that's the-
see it in the permit?
I should remember what the number is. It is a number,
52.
like 52 or something like that.
So
You are Littleton citizens.
Yes.
Please vote. Please come to town meetings.
Well, that's over here, yeah.
Town meetings are very fun and interesting.
No, it says
Bring
the
your cushion.
applicant, not the final owner, it's the applicant, because he was going to be restricted from using too much water in the construction of the project. That's
So,
not you.
It's not you, it's
Okay.
not the homeowner.
Okay, thank you.
So you can wash
Mr.
cars.
Bobrowski.
Wash your car.
1 second, please, the lawyer's speaking.
I want to leave with the confirmation that what I read is acceptable and that Mr. Gallagher can pull his COs, holding the last one hostage until landscaping's done and all town departments have signed off. There was no motion or vote to that effect.
Wait, This is
I
a
wanna be
discussion, so we don't need to vote on that or move it. We've accepted it, and we asked you to send it to our admin for the minutes, and she will put it in the minutes. And then Roland has his direction. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you this evening.
Okay.
You turn the barrel.
We really still have 15 Great Road to go?
Oh, yeah. I got a bone to pick.
Whose agenda item is it? Yours?
Oh, yeah. It's the fencing that was supposed to be along 119. That was on the first plan, but didn't get put on the second
Okay,
plan.
1 second.
Where do you want to
The
go?
room is noisy, and we're still having a meeting here, so if you are leaving, please leave quietly. Take your conversation out of the room into the mosquito area to the left.
We are still talking about the project as a whole, though.
Now, Mr.
So you know.
Hale, if you don't mind being here for this. Go ahead.
So, before we start, does anyone have a problem with the fence at the front of the project?
The one along 119.
The,
The lack of fence along 119.
There's a post and rail.
Oh, the post and rail. The original plan had a solid fence that would provide safety for dogs, kids, whatever. And what's been put up is a split rail fence. So the question Mr. Hale is asking, are you satisfied with the split rail fence, or do you want to go look at what was supposed to be put there?
I think the way it is, it looks nice, otherwise it's gonna look like a leper community with, you know.
1 second, 1 second.
Sorry.
I want your name for that quote. And Shelley, I think, had a comment.
Yeah, so to clarify, the 2012 decision showed an 8-foot vinyl fence and some trees and some other things. The 2014 decision and approved plan showed just the split rail fence, which is there, and some trees for screening. So the fence that Cheryl's referring to was on the original decision, not this approved decision that we're working on for right now.
Does anyone else want to speak to it? I saw a couple of other hands up. Behind, yeah.
Only 4 Boxwood Drive. So the fence looks fine, there's no problem with that one. However, the trees, initially it covers the whole thing. So my house is the first one. So now there is no cover. It stopped a little bit. If I sit in the backyard, I'm sitting on the main road. Route 2A, basically.
So what are
there's
you
no-
looking for, more trees?
Yeah, if it's.
Will your 11 plantings help with that or not?
That's why the first thing I thought of putting a fence. That's the initial, because I have kids and there is no screening, anything.
Are you the gentleman I talked to, took pictures of?
No. Mine is the first house in the entrance.
Okay,
On the right or the left?
On the left.
okay.
All right, I
Is
had
the
a,
gentleman that was in the back corner of that, against 119, here?
He's not here.
He's on vacation.
He's on vacation?
What?
He concerned me. I took a bunch of pictures of his nice landscaping and his very young children that are right against 119, which looked active and could become pancakes very quickly.
now that we
My
have
concern.
their right to get fences, though, that would be an individual decision.
But when we went from the 2012 plan to the 2014 plan, I pointed out, and it's in the video, I pointed out that the fence wasn't there, and I was reassured that it was there, it just wasn't in this detail, and I didn't need to worry about it. So I am worried about your children, and I don't want you to look like a leper society, I understand that, but I am worried about children, and I am worried about dogs, and I am worried about how fast 119 is, and how they widened it there to allow for turning into grist mill, and I am worried about children.
I have something to say, is people speed down Boxwood 40, 50 miles an hour. There's not a speed sign, a slow down, or anything. I'm at 6 Boxwood. I've told several people to slow it down. They don't care. So there is, besides 119, on our own street, residents are flying down there. So if a resident can't be expected to drive at a limit that's appropriate to keep children safe, but then you want them to have a fence, it doesn't make sense.
119 is a state highway.
I understand, but what I'm saying is.
I hear you, I hear what you're saying, and maybe the association, when you were formed, wants to put some speed bumps in.
My point is that I understand your concern about people having fences to keep the children safe, but the same residents are flying down that street.
I think most of the residents that are flying down that street are probably flying to the back, because the residents I'm talking about are up front, right against 119.
I'm right there, I'm the second house on the left, so I see them fly by all the time.
Let me go to the gentleman who had his hand up behind you. Blue shirt. Gary, sorry.
Yes.
I remembered.
To Mr. Hale's question, I like the look the way it is right now. I like the post and rail. There's the elevated berm there that isolates us from 119. The trees. If you were to put a solid fence there, it would be very obtrusive to me personally.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Hale?
The berm was added specifically for two reasons. One, for the visual effect of raising the trees up and giving it more screening, but also, if you really look at it, I mean, somebody's got to climb up the berm, go through the trees, go over the fence, and then down 6 or 7 feet to 119. It's not very likely. There's 25 homes between there and the center of town on 119. I don't see any of them that have a tall, solid fence.
In the back, I have one.
I think the look, currently what it looks fine, there's no need for fence, but just if you extend the tree line to the main line a little bit further, it gives the cover. There's no need for fence.
At this point, that tree line belongs to the Wildflower Meadow Condo Association, or
No,
yours
it does
still?
not. It belongs to Mr. Gallagher tells us it belongs to Mr. Hale.
I don't really think that's true. I think, we built it.
The responsibility for the fence being what it is was yours initially,
That's
but
correct.
I'm not sure maintaining that fence and the tree line is Mr. Hale's. I think that's the
So it's
Wildflower
actually,
Meadow
well, it's the HOA
Homeowners
Trust,
Association.
which is a combination of the apartments and and the condo association.
Is the HOA trust now formed with someone other than you as the developer, or are you still the developer on that?
We are still the developer on that.
So you haven't appointed a
So when they,
committee?
no. So when they have an association,
Are the trees scant because they haven't grown yet, or they died, or there weren't enough? Do you know the answer to that?
There, very small part is done. For whatever reason, I don't know, but it is not extended to the.
So you would like to see the trees extended. I mean, I'm going to back off on my fence if this is what you guys want, because you're the ones living there, not me. But what
Fence maybe looks odd.
is there,
so there are more trees there than were on the plan. So,
but maybe we could twist his arm to put more trees in if he's not putting in the fence in that the plan showed and we were reassured was going to be there. I don't know. Is that possible?
the fence is
The
there.
homeowner could also put in trees.
Not along the road there. The homeowner.
Along there, he's talking about screening for his home.
That's what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Screening for your own home.
No, I was talking.
Otherwise, I'm trying to put fence. That's why I asked Mark for permission, basically.
I think that by affecting the decision of modifying the ability to put fences, we've relieved some of the pressure on you, mandating the 11 plantings, 13. I don't know why I
Keep saying
keep saying
11.
11. The 13, because she only got 11. The 13 plantings, you can elect to have some of them be the trees, if that's what you want to do to fill it in. I think there's a point at which the project accomplished what it needed to. Look at this room full of new happy homeowners in Littleton that were all able to come into the community because of the 40B process, and we've got them more or less satisfied. I think there's a time that we have to step back because the decision's been complied with and allow the neighborhood of condo association and homeowners association to take control, and we need to stop micromanaging.
Use my own words against you?
Yes, I like your words. All right,
Yeah,
one more, and then I
your
want to
words.
send my board home, because I have an admin that should be out for her birthday. Go ahead.
Yeah, we need to go home too. So, I'm the corner, like the corner plot, the 12 Boxwood Drive, and we share part of the corner with the Village Green apartment. So that kind, if we have to make we wanted to make a fence because I just got a kid, and he will be moving in some time. So that part is common, and I don't want to build a fence because it won't look nice at that part. And it's a very typical, odd shaped area. It's like the triangular part which wouldn't look nice with the fence. So I just wanted to make sure, if we have some plantings there, it's okay to share that part.
Yeah, Mr. Gallagher is going to have to address that, because I can't even visualize what you're talking about, quite
But you
frankly.
you yourself can plant
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
exclusive use area, whatever you
Right,
want to
anything
plant.
It's beyond the exclusive.
Oh, I see.
Like
common
those,
areas.
it's common.
Well, you might, it's a homeowners association.
Yeah, you talk to Mr. Gallagher now, and once your association is formed, then be an active member of your association. And come to town meetings.
I mean, you guys have the advantage of if, your neighbor doesn't cut his grass, the condo association can get after him. My neighbor doesn't cut his grass, no damn thing I do about it. Sorry about that word, but, I mean, I've got a brother-in-law who lives in Westford, I think he cut his grass once this summer. So, I don't know why his neighbors don't tar and feather. But it's just, you guys have an advantage to being being a group of people who can kind of put, the strong arm in each other, whereas you go just about anywhere else in town, and the neighbor, there's a guy up on New Estate Road, that's got a dump in front of his yard. And the town's tried multiple times to try to correct it, and there's nothing they can do about it, because he's not really breaking any major laws that they can get away with.
So vacancies on town boards come available frequently. Think about it, you're now Littleton citizens. Come participate.
Thank you all for coming
We're all
out.
volunteers.
I'm very impressed that you all made the time to come out tonight. Appreciate your presence, and thank you all for speaking up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the discussion?
Move to close the discussion.
Second, all those in favor?
My kid's gonna be a junkie.
It's in the minutes, you don't have to.
wasn't.
I don't think we need the meter. In fact, I think it'd be better if there wasn't.
Me too. Yeah, me too. Before we go, in harmony, please. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Shelley.
I thought it was the 29th.
It was last year.
Okay, who wants to,
Do you recycle anything you wanted to
So,
recycle?
35?
It's back.
35.
Mine's on name.
Let's go on the record. Move to
Put it back
adjourn.
anyway.
All in favor?
I want to keep this looking, this is interesting. I want to keep this again.
Unless it's, we're just gonna see fire.